Welcome, everybody, to the August 2024 meeting of the Metropolitan Washington Old Time Radio Club. And we're delighted that you're all here. This is just great. We have a wonderful program tonight, which will be started. You will get started with Karl Schadow in the first 15 in just a minute or two. And I'm assuming, Frank, that you need hosting privileges because you're supporting Karl's
Correct.
presentation. Okay, great. Well, then I will do that. We'll get all our ducks in a row for the moment. Let's see, make co-host. Right. Well, this is really wonderful. I don't see any visitors or any unfamiliar names at this point. So I will turn things over to Karl Schadow, who I think is with us on the phone. He was anyway.
That's correct. Yep.
Yay. Well, welcome, Karl, and thank you once again.
Thank you
for stepping in with this. This is just wonderful.
Great. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm getting kind of like feedback from everybody's voices. I want to make sure you folks can hear me okay.
Oh, yeah. It clear as a bell. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. Great. Okay, Frank, we're ready to go here. Okay, today's first 15 is Club Car Special. Just imagine you're on a train back in the 1930s, and those wonderful people that you see in the slide there are just enjoying themselves in the club cars of the trains. That was also known as the lounge car. And they're reading the newspapers, the Hearst newspapers. Hearst was one of the biggest media outlets, publisher newspapers, had numerous newspapers owned all over the country. And
Karl,
for publicity.
We're not seeing anything from Frank.
Oh, Christ.
Okay.
Yeah, you need to share your screen, Frank.
I had to share it, but let's see what happens.
Nothing happened earlier.
Okay. Let me go back and boy. Share screen. All right.
We're not seeing anything, Frank.
At this point you won't, so let me go back and this is so annoying.
Yes, it is. In fairness to Frank, Zoom seems to have updates every 2 or 3 days, and they switch around where the controls are, they switch around the way these things work. So but this is just one of the joys of technology.
It had portion of something. Well, yeah. I'm sorry, that's somebody else. I'm sorry.
You're not seeing it now?
No.
Nope.
I've got a beautiful picture of it.
Did you hit share screen before?
I did. I hit that first before I opened the PowerPoint.
That might be the problem, Frank. You need to open the PowerPoint first, and then hit share screen, then select the window that has the PowerPoint.
Okay. All right. I'll go back and do that.
Thank you, Michael.
One month we'll have a meeting on how to get a PhD in sharing your screen with Zoom.
I tell you, it changes. I do a lot of share screening with
Here we
Oh,
go.
here we
Hot
are.
diggity dog.
Yay. Well done, Frank.
All right. I apologize.
Regrouping now. Take it away, Karl and Frank.
Okay, great. So now you can see the banner of the section in Hearst newspapers, March of Events and Stage and Screen, and Club Car Special. You see the folks down there in the lounge car, or what they called the club car back in the 20s and 30s for your passenger trains. Hearst used this as a publicity tool to plug their newspapers. And so if those folks there are reading their newspapers and they turn to a page that has the ad on it, the next slide, they wanted the folks to tune into a new program based on the writings of these nation's leading humorists. And so who are some of these folks? Well, no, I'm going to get that in the next slide, but let me tell you a little about Club Car Special background. It was a transcribed syndicated series of 12 15-minute episodes. I mentioned that it was from the Hearst newspapers, the Sunday editions, those large Sunday editions, the March of Events and City Life sections, which just had all kinds of authors and all kinds of events depending upon the both national and local information in those. The transcription discs were recorded by General Broadcasting Company in New York and released between January 21st and April 7th. Most of the stations played this between Tuesday and Saturday before the edition was released by Hearst. 70 stations, including WOR for the New York American, WCA in Pittsburgh, and others. You see that list there. KYW, that was the old KYW in Chicago, and as Frank and I know, current KYW, and those of you familiar with Pennsylvania, is currently in Philadelphia. So now we go on to the humorists whose works were adapted for Club Car Special. We start with O.O. McIntyre. His column was Day by Day. He didn't do a whole lot of radio, and his characters were thought as, some of his characters that he wrote about were an inspiration for Allen's Alley on the Fred Allen's weekly radio show. Next person is Damon Runyon. I picked this episode of Club Car Special because it has a Damon Runyon story in it. No, it's not of his characters, The Great White Way or The Main Stem, so we won't hear Broadway or John Brown, but we will hear another interesting character that Damon Runyon wrote about was Operative T99, who was a detective in the Earl Orb Detective Agency. Two more humorists, Arthur Bugs Bear, his column, One World Led for Another, and one of his funny characters was Waterman from Roughtown, if you were familiar with him. And of course, everybody's familiar with Will Rogers, radio films. He just about did everything, one of the most famous people in America. One of his radio programs was Will Rogers and his alarm clock. So let me introduce, before Frank goes to the next slide in the audio, I just want to introduce the episode. It's number 2 from the end of January of 1934. And what each episode started with a small skit based on a cartoon from the newspaper. So Frank, go ahead and cue up the audio.
Yeah.
All aboard, Club Car Special, all aboard.
Again, we step on board the Club Car Special, sink into a comfortable chair, and open our newspaper to the March of Events and City Life section, a section of wit and humor appearing in the Hearst papers throughout the country. Its features are written by America's leading laugh provokers, Will Rogers, Arthur Bugs Bear, O.O. McIntyre, George Ade, Sam Hellman, Milt Gross, Damon Runyon, and many others. So let's be on our way to $1 million worth of mirth and merriment. Well, before we go any further, let's see what this cartoon is all about. Well, it seems to be a scene in a courtroom. and a beautiful girl is in the witness box. The judge is bending eagerly forward, and the prosecuting attorney is excitedly objecting to something or other. This all looks very, very interesting.
Silence in the court.
But, Your Honor, I object.
And what do you object to?
I object, Your Honor, to the unfair influence which the witness is bringing to bear upon the court.
What unfair influence is the witness bringing to bear upon the court?
If it please the court, her skirts are too high and her legs are crossed. And if it please the court,
We'll say it pleases the court. All aboard Club Power Special. Next stop, O.O. McIntyre. All aboard.
McIntyre's friends know him as Odd McIntyre, but the whole world knows him as one who provides glimpses of the great and the near great, and as a writer who philosophizes on the big and the little things of life. No writer in America has more friends than McIntyre. He has millions of followers scattered in all states, and one of his most loyal adherents is Billy Murray. Billy, will you tell us what McIntyre has had to say lately?
McIntyre became somewhat philosophical the other day and dashed off some pearls of wisdom apropos of thoughts that come to one at the age of 40. Listen to the way McIntyre puts it. He says, at 40, the sensible man realizes, if he has not already succeeded, that he has but 10 years to make a mark, if it is not to be washed out by the next tide. At 40, it is difficult to mend habits. You will regret many things at 40, but it is the age when most sturdy characters crystallize. If you're honest at 40, you will likely remain honest the rest of your days.
Well, he's certainly right about that, Billy. I'll check him there. Anything more?
Yes, McIntyre says that at 40, you will realize that the sanest philosophy comes from men past 60. Men you regarded as old fogies 10 years ago. Oh, and then McIntyre gives those who have reached the 40 mark a bit of sober optimism. For instance, he says that at 40, the most interesting part of your life is before you, although it is the briefest cycle. It is probable that your life is more than half over, but you'll find between 40 and 60 the golden years, especially if you have prepared for them. Oh, listen to this. Here's a hard jolt. McIntyre finishes by saying that if you haven't prepared for the golden years ahead, do so at once, or heaven help you, no one else will. It wouldn't be typical of McIntyre if he didn't give you a few pertinent facts about famous persons. He says Marie Dressler saw 3 little pigs 8 times. J.P. Morgan always keeps his name off passenger lists. Ben Burney is Cincinnati's radio favorite. King George always carries indigestion tablets in his pocket. And Primo Carnera, following his breach of promise shakedowns, is now girl shy. Yes, Harry, for sober philosophy, whimsical humor, and up-to-the-minute gossip, you can't beat Odd McIntyre. I wouldn't miss him for anything.
All aboard Club Car Special. Next stop, Damon Runyon. All aboard.
Damon Runyon has created a wide following for his thrilling mystery stories revolving about the adventures of Operative T-99 of the Eagle Off Detective Agency. Now, the adventure we are about to dramatize for you begins in the palatial home of Mrs. H.D.G.B. Hackabee, who has summoned Operative T-99 to clear up a very baffling situation.
What seems to be the trouble, Mrs. H.D.G.B. Hackabee?
Oh, I'm simply worried to death. Just look at Puggle Wuggles.
Who is Puggle Wuggles?
This is Puggle Wuggles. Speak to the man, Puggle Wuggles. Oh, he's just wasting away to skin and bone.
Won't he eat? How's his appetite?
His appetite is perfectly enormous. He eats a big heaping plate of liverwurst and sauerkraut every day.
Most extraordinary. Most extraordinary. Could it be that any of your servants have a grudge against the little dog? Perhaps someone is giving him slow poison.
Oh, no, that couldn't be. Puggle Wuggles is under the personal care of Jarvis, the butler. Jarvis is entirely above suspicion.
I beg your pardon, madam.
That's Jarvis now.
I just brought Puggle Wuggles dinner, madam. Liverwurst and sauerkraut.
Thank you, Jarvis. You may
Just
put it
a moment. Where does Puggle Wuggles usually eat his dinner?
He never eats anywhere but in the sunroom. That's right next to my husband's room. Mr. H.D.G.B. Hackabee is somewhat of an invalid. He's been confined to his room for months.
I see. Do you mind if I go along while Puggle Wuggles is fed?
Oh, not at all. You may give me the liverwurst and sauerkraut, Jarvis. Now, that'll be all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now, just follow me.
Yes, ma'am.
This way. Here we are. Now, Mother will put Puggle Wuggles on his big silk pillow and give him his dinner.
He seems hungry, all right. Now, Mrs. H.D.G.B. Hackabee, do you mind stepping back here with me behind this curtain?
Why, no, not at all.
Now, we'll both be very quiet. I want to watch Puggle Wuggles eat his dinner. Keep back of the curtain. We must be completely hidden. Now, help me watch closely.
Look.
An arm reaching through that door.
It's reaching for Puggle Wuggles' liverwurst and sauerkraut.
It's taking it away. Hey, you! Stick him up! Come out of that room!
Who could it be?
Come on now! Come out of that room!
Oh, it's my husband.
Your husband?
Henry? What does this mean?
So you caught me, did you?
Henry, what on earth? Stop eating Puggle Wuggles' liverwurst and sauerkraut and answer me.
Just a moment, Mrs. H.D.G.B. Hackabee. Ah, I thought so. Very good.
What is it?
What do you usually feed your husband?
My husband.
Yes,
Artichokes, broccoli, chicken broth custard.
I thought so.
But what does that have to do with little Puggle Wuggles?
It means that if you don't want Puggle Wuggles to starve to death, you'd better give Mr. H.D.G.B. Hackabee some of this very excellent liverwurst and sauerkraut now and then.
All aboard, Club Call Special. Next stop, Arthur Bunk's Bar. All aboard.
Thousands of readers of the Hearst Sunday newspapers are following the career of a big, lanky guy named What a Man. What a Man is the brainchild of Arthur Bugs Bear. Wada goes to a college called Roughtown, and last season he was very active on the football team. Oh, very active indeed. But wait, I think Charlie Cantor saw the final game of that Roughtown schedule. How about it, Charlie? Am I right?
I was there, Harry, in the flesh.
Well, then come on up here and give us some of this first-hand information on What a Man.
This guy, What a Man, is quite a character. You see, the day Wada arrived at Roughtown College, he went out to the football field just for the walk. The boys were having a little scrimmage, and when Wada saw 22 of them all in one pile, he thought they were trying to catch a turtle, so he dove right in. Well, before the boys got unscrambled, What a Man was unanimously elected to the team. Wada says he just started at the bottom and worked his way up. But about that final game, Harry, I saw What a Man make the first lateral touchdown in history. He slid along the 50-yard line, Greenwich time, under the Roughtown bench, and out the freight entrance of the mayor's box, and without interference. No, What a Man did not make the All-American team this year, but he did make the wrong goal, 5 fumbles, and a hospital cot all in one day. Incidentally, Harry, Roughtown won that game 87-0. It was just an old-time ear-grabber's holiday. Right then, they started putting trailers on ambulances. You know, out at Roughtown College, they don't hand out diplomas, Harry. No, indeedy. The boys spend so much time in the hospital, they give them a fever chart when they graduate. Dear old Roughtown. And if you don't think they can give it as well as take it, listen to this. Next year, Roughtown plays Army and Notre Dame at the same time. Army will defend the North Goal, Notre Dame will defend the South Goal, and Roughtown... Roughtown will start in the middle and work both ways.
All aboard, Will Rogers, next stop. All aboard.
As he says himself, all Will Rogers knows is just what he reads in the papers or what he runs into here and there. And in one of his articles, he told of a party given by Hal Roach, the man who produces those very fine comedies. The occasion was the 20th anniversary of Mr. Roach's entry into pictures. Rogers says the casting directors of the old silent movies went at things a little differently than they do today. And according to Will's article, Hal Roach's initiation of 20 years ago might have been something like this.
Why, hello, Hal. You in this picture?
Me? No. Just thought I'd drop around, see what's doing. You working on this lot?
I don't know yet. Have a cigarette?
No, thanks. I always roll my own.
Oh, that's right. I see you got the makings handy.
Yeah. Always carry it right here in my shirt pocket with a little tag hanging out so I can get at it easy.
I never could learn to roll them. Oh, say, here comes Joe Mooch.
Who's Joe Mooch?
The director.
Oh.
Here's where I hit for some work. Good morning, Mr. Mooch. Anything for me in this picture today?
No, but say, I can use your friend there.
Who, me?
Yeah, you with that tobacco sack in your pocket. Now listen, I want you to do a cowboy. All you got to do is to ride a horse down a cliff. Now, wait for me right over there by the camera, will
But
you?
say, wait a minute.
I'll be right with you.
Hey, Hal, when did you learn to ride a horse?
I can't ride.
And yet Mooch picks you for the job.
Gee, I can't imagine why. Maybe I better tell him I can't ride when he comes back.
All right, you. Now get it. You have to climb on this horse when I yell camera action. And when and then you ride down the side of the hill. You got it?
Yeah, but listen.
But nothing. That's all you've got to do. All ready, boys?
All set, Mr. Mooch.
All right, get set, you now then. Camera action. Come on, cowboy. Come on, get started. Faster, you. Faster. Run to the horse. Now, climb up on it. No. Come around and get on him from this side. The camera is on this side. Please remember, we're taking pictures of you, not the horse. Hey, you, what are you going to do, dance with him? Get on the horse. No. You're going to ride with that horse, not wrestle with him. Come out from underneath him. And listen, cowboy, smile, will you? You like this horse. He is your horse, your pal, you got it? You're the best of friends. Stop acting so scared. From your face, people would think it was the first time that you ever rode a horse.
Well, it is.
Huh? What's that? Cut! Stop grinding, boys. Hey, come here, you.
Yes, sir.
Ain't you a real cowboy?
Me? Why, no.
Give out. Well, why do you wear a tobacco sack in your shirt pocket if you're not a cowboy?
The Club Car Special has made its last stop on this program. You have been enjoying the fun and nonsense of America's leading humorists, Will Rogers, Odd McIntyre, George Abe, Bugs Bear, Damon Runyon, and others. This program was based upon their writings and on the cartoons that appear in the March of Events and City Life section of the Hearst Sunday newspaper. Buy a copy of the Hearst newspaper in your community next Sunday. Read and laugh at these articles written by the nation's leading writers of comedy. Once you make their acquaintance, you'll be inviting them into your home through the newspaper and on the radio every week. Be sure to meet the Club Car Special when it makes the next trip on the air a week from today. Same station, same time.
Okay, so who were some of the cast members? A couple of them were mentioned in this episode. Billy Murray, who was actually the number one recording vocalist during the first quarter of the 20th century. He recorded music vocalist for Brunswick and Victor and many different labels. He was also on Broadway in the 20s on Princess Flavia, Merry Go Round, and Sweet Adeline. And on radio, he was in a comedy with Walter Scanlon and Marcella Shields, which ran for several years on various stations in New York during the late 1920s and early 1930s. On the right is Jean Colbert. She played all of the female or most of the female roles in this episode, including the Mrs. Hackabee. She had been on radio for many years. Tasty, Yeast Players, Red Davis, show by Elaine Carrington, which morphed into, of course, the iconic Pepper Young's Family. And also she co-starred in another Hearst series, The Case of Sally Smith, which was kind of a soap opera that they that they based on various writings in the Hearst newspapers. Two more cast members, Charlie Tanner, who you probably recognize. We offered him on Beyond Reasonable Doubt several months ago when I presented that show as the first 15. Tanner was also on Fred Waring. And later, though, we know him best probably as the buffoon, the stooge, Finnegan on Duffy's Tavern. On the right, Jerry Macy, who included his own caption there in the photo. Very nice of him. Jerry had been on radio since the mid-1920s in several programs, including Real Folks and Tompkins Corners. And he was the one who played his gruff voice. He was the operative T99 in that Damon Runyon skit. The next slide, we have Howard Claney. You may recognize him as an announcer. He had some bit parts in these episodes. He was an announcer on Lucky Strike Hour and Chevrolet program and the Kraft program during the 1930s. A big question mark on the right-hand side, so I'm hoping folks can help me out this evening. Who is the conductor in that episode and also the announcer? They called him Harry, but I don't think it's Harry Wenzel, and I haven't been able to determine another Harry announcer in the New York area at that time. We move on to Harold Levy. You may recognize his name as being the orchestra and music conductor of both Cavalcade of America and Theater Guild on the Air. However, before that, he's probably best known for his work on Broadway, composing the music for such plays as Lad Billy, The Clinging Vine, and Lovely Lady. And of course, that snappy theme that they chose was Alabama Bound, of course, introduced by Al Jolson. Audio, there's those two websites there, archive.org, and on YouTube, there are 10 of the 12 episodes available in pretty decent sound. But scripts, I have not been able to find any scripts, despite extensive searches, including the William Hearst papers who are archived out in California. And of course, there's the old critique. Ben Bodek, writing as Odek in Variety in 1934, he summed the episode up as, "The thing was capably staged and the dialogue contained good cause for laughs." Of course, there's always room for improvement. Back then, radio had some problems, and the sexist attitudes towards women needed to be eliminated, and also the stereotypical roles for minorities. Yeah, I hear you laughing. Not only for the audio, but in the closing slide, we'll see that in the newspaper advertisement, as the conductor is waving us goodbye, including myself. I think they could have left out the conductor, and I think it would have been a really cool out of the newspapers. Any questions? I hope you folks enjoyed this, and if you've heard of this show before, I'd certainly like to hear from you. Thanks a lot.
I have one comment. I logged on, but I could not hear anything. I don't know if anybody else had the same situation.
Oh, the audio was clear as a bell.
I logged
Do you have
out.
your mic turned up?
Yeah, I logged out and then I logged back in again, and I could hear it at the very end of the Club Car special. So that would be recorded so I could catch up with it later on?
Yes.
All right, I have no idea what happened.
Yes, our own John Abbott will get this all folded, spindled, and mutilated and posted to our web page.
Okay,
probably
if you have any
within the
questions, you've got my email. I'm sorry, my email is on there on the last slide there if you have any questions, John.
Well, and thank you
Carl?
so much, Carl. That was really fun.
Carl, I had
yes,
a
go ahead.
question. This is Edgar. And
Edgar.
my question is that if this was sponsored by the Hearst papers and Hearst was the guy who hired, big talent and paid them well, my question is, why did they not have the actual people to at least introduce them? Will Rogers would have, at least done a very funny introduction to his thing, and some of the others. Do you have any insight?
Yeah, I think they wanted to keep the cost down. I'm glad you brought that up, because there was a piece in Variety on the same issue that Ben Bodek had his review. On a different page, there was a little blurb about ASCAP, the Society for Publishers and Composers. They weren't able to collect their fees for any of the other stations except for WOR. It was a commercial on WOR, but not on the other stations. And I'm not sure exactly how they worked that out. But so they weren't paying for that. And I think it was they kept the cost down and not have the big stars, like Will Rogers and others on there. They were paying. Of course, this was 1934, was before AFRA, so all the cast members I mentioned were doing several roles. They were in every skit, and so that wouldn't have been allowed later. So I think it was definitely a cost. Excellent question, but I think it was a cost factor.
Gotcha. Well, thank you. I'm very glad you brought this to our attention.
Yes, makes me want to go out and listen to the other ones. Thank you for the link to the archives. I've become a big fan of train travel these days, so you had my attention immediately.
I like that music.
Yes.
Yes, the theme. I thought that theme was great. Alabama Bound. With the as the wheels of the train, they move faster and faster. Of course, the music got faster and faster to go away. I haven't been able to identify any of the other themes of any of the incidental bridge music. So I think the one for the mystery was some silent film, but I can't recall that. So if anybody has any idea on those musical bridges, please contact me, because I'd love to know what the titles of those songs were.
Okay, this is Phil. Of course, you realize club cars nowadays are a heck of a lot different.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Yes, travel in general is a heck of a lot different. Very well spoke. Does anyone have any other questions for Karl? Well, you've left us all wonderful stuff to think about. So thank you, Karl, for that. And
my pleasure. My pleasure.
For
oh yes, and I want to thank Frank and John for their assistance. So,
well, great stuff, and we have benefited from it. So, thank you. And now I think it's time to move on to school time with our own quiz mistress and resident teacher, Sally Stevens, who will read us the quiz, which was composed by Frank Morgan.
All right, time to get back to school. I go back on Monday.
Oh, I'll give you
Dennis is
hosting.
raising his hand.
Yes, Pater.
You're on mute,
give
Dennis.
you hosting privileges.
Thank you, Wendy.
I have to check in on Edgar before we start.
Edgar, you're on mute,
well
but
done.
he's got a
Thank
tie.
you. Tie check. Excellent. Tie check, Edgar. Very nice. Thank you. I'm glad we all came dressed and well prepared to school. Excellent. I hope we all have been studying. Because it's time to go back to school, unfortunately. I'm not ready. Maybe you are, children. You're probably driving all of your parents mad at home.
We're
yes,
ready for
I
you to go
know
back to
you
school,
are.
yes.
I can see you, John, nodding. Yes, of course you are. Making them crazy because you won't go play outside. Now all you want to do is sit on your iPad all day. I know how it is. Kids these days, let me tell you.
Guilty as charged.
All right, class. I hope you have your materials. I did send out the class list, so everyone should have their Crayola crayons. You should have your Ticonderoga pencils, your notebooks. Very good. I see people are prepared. Excellent. I'm seeing some material. Very nice. Very good. Yes, I see Kelly's ready. Wendy's ready. Yes. Oh, very good, Joni. Thank you. Some of us still need to bring our materials in to school. I see. Don't forget the tissue boxes. Very important, because by 2 weeks, we're all going to be sick. Okay? 2 weeks, we're all going to have colds. It's going to be disgusting. So, excellent, Wendy. Thank you. Very good. It's just going to be gross. So, yeah, we're all going to be out. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm hoping I'll get to have some sick days. I mean, maybe I'll. All right, let's get to the quiz. Everyone has their materials. I am going to launch the poll here, which you may do on your various screens at a different rate than I will read it. You may also write it down, and then we will go over the answers after the main program. I will read each question twice, the answers through once. So pay attention. This is a lot of polls, President.
You want names and places. That what those others weren't supposed to display, but names and places is the poll you're looking for. Teach.
Lot. I felt like this was a test of my abilities here, and this.
Well, there you go.
I didn't. I wasn't
we
ready
wanna
for
keep
that.
everybody on their toes.
Wasn't ready. All right. Launching poll now.
Perfect. Great.
Number 1. Virginia Gregg played many roles on Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar. But what was the name of the character she played as Johnny's girlfriend? A. Helen Asher. B. Betty Lewis. C. Lorelei Kilborn. D. Patsy Bowen. Virginia Gregg played many roles on Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar. But what was the name of the character she played as Johnny's girlfriend? Number 2. Dr. Kildare worked at Blair General Hospital. In what city is that hospital located? A. Los Angeles. B. Chicago. C. Boston. D. New York. Dr. Kildare worked at Blair General Hospital. In which city is that hospital located? Number 3. Molly's uncle Dennis was talked about but never heard from until several of the show's regulars were serving in World War II. Who played Uncle Dennis? A. Dennis Day. B. Hans Conried. C. Ransom Sherman. D. Parker Fennelly. Molly's uncle Dennis was talked about but never heard from until several of the show's regulars were serving in World War II. Who played him? Number 4. Gary Cooper will never be remembered for his singing voice. He was famously cajoled to sing a version of Lay That Pistol Down on what radio program? A. The Voice of Firestone. B. The Jack Benny Show. C. The Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy Show. D. The Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis Show. Gary Cooper famously sang a version of Lay That Pistol Down on which radio program? Number 5. Created 6 years before Sherlock Holmes, this detective also used scientific method in solving crimes when he came to radio in 1943. What was the name of the program? A. The Amazing Mr. Malone. B. The Shadow. C. Nick Carter, Master Detective. D. Mr. Keen, Tracer of Lost Persons. Created 6 years before Sherlock Holmes, this detective also used scientific method in solving crimes when he came to radio in 1943. What was the program? The germs have already started. I saw that, Mr. Roman. Number 6. Casey, crime photographer, announcer, my circuits are shorting. Tony Marvin said the show was sponsored by the Anchor Hawking Glass Corporation of where? A. Lancaster, Pennsylvania. B. Lancaster, Ohio. C. Lancaster, South Carolina. D. Lancaster, California.
Sally, your great grandmother was a Lancaster. Lancaster.
Well, if you think it's Frankfurt, you're wrong. Casey, crime photographer, was sponsored by the Anchor Hawking Glass Corporation of which Lancaster? Number 7. Marjorie's engagement announcement was in it. Leroy delivered it. Gildersleeve wasn't always happy with it. It was Summerfield's newspaper. But what was its name? A. The Summerfield Inquirer. B. The Summerfield Insider. C. The Summerfield Inquisitor. D. The Summerfield Informer. And no, it's not Springfield. What is the name of the newspaper in that show I don't like? The Great Gildersleeve. Number 8. Nigel Bruce, the favorite Dr. Watson, was born in Mexico. This Sherlock Holmes radio actor with whom he teamed on radio was born in Russia. Who was he maybe still alive? A. Sir John Gigglegoog. B. Basil Rathbone. C. Tom Conway. D. William Gillette. Nigel Bruce was born in Mexico. He teamed with this Sherlock Holmes actor who was born in Russia. Who was he? I hope it's Gigglegoog.
Can't do it, Sally. It's Gielgud.
I like my interpretation. Thank you. And I haven't even had any wine yet tonight.
Spitball.
Children, you're welcome. You're welcome. This is me teaching clean. It's terrible. It's horrible. Detoxing after summer. Number 9. You Bet Your Life was hosted by the one, the only Groucho. But what was Groucho's given name? A. Arthur. B. Julius. C. Milton. D. Herbert. What was Groucho's actual for real name? Number 10. During World War II, this film star upset his radio studio bosses when he enlisted in the Marines. He was the star of the series Freedom USA. Who was he? A. Jimmy Stewart. B. Clark Gable. C. Tyrone Power. D. Gary Cooper. During World War II, this film star upset studio bosses when he enlisted in the Marines. He was the star of Freedom USA. Who was he? Thus endeth the quiz. F. However, I will let the poll continue to run in the background, so you may continue to answer. And thankfully, there's no write-ins, because just out of spite, I would write in Springfield and someplace that doesn't include Lancaster, just to be annoying.
Thank you, Miss Stevens.
You're
That
welcome.
was delightful, as always. So now we're ready to move on to the main program, although Frank has his camera off, which is interesting. But perhaps he will return to us, or at least his voice will.
I'm here.
Frank, are you there? We're not seeing your picture, but that's okay, because you're going to probably share your, oh, there you are.
Well, yeah, but you can't hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I just prefer to do this while I'm going through.
Very good. All right. Well, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay.
Yay. Perfect.
Now let me get the audio shared and we'll be in business. Okay, good. Okay. The only thing I knew about Tyrone Power was to think he might make an interesting subject for presentation. I didn't know how right I was. Tyrone Edmund Power III was born May 5th, 1914 in Cincinnati, Ohio. His mother, Helen Emma Rayaume, known as Patya, was of French-Canadian ancestry. She was a dramatics teacher and a Shakespearean actor. His father, Tyrone Power Sr., was an acclaimed stage and silent films actor. Power Sr. came from a long line of Irish performers, including his great-grandfather, Irish comedian and actor Tyrone Power, referred to as Tyrone the Elder. Power Sr. was 43 years old when he married Patya after years of affairs and dalliances. Unfortunately, marriage and monogamy were not his strengths. He left the marriage and the couple divorced. Patya and the children, Tyrone and his younger sister, Anne, lived in San Gabriel, California. Patya secured the lead play, and the children were raised by a nurse housekeeper they called Pet. Here's a shot of Tyrone at age 3. Now here's a picture of Tyrone, a little bit older, with his sister Annie, who was a year younger. Tyrone's first acting experience was on the stage at age 7. He had one line. After that, he became obsessed with acting. After 5 years in the play, Patya tired of it. Add that to a brief failed marriage, and Patya chose to move back to Cincinnati, where her mother lived, and Tyrone deeply loved his grandmother. Tyrone attended Purcell High School in Cincinnati and had roles in school plays. While in high school, Tyrone also worked at a local movie house and kept a notebook with entries about each film he saw, recording comments on how the film was put together and its structure. And that's him in his uniform at the theater. He decided that he would attempt to begin a career in theater after graduation. Tyrone knew he had to develop dramatic skills before pursuing his theatrical goal, so he asked Patja if he could go live with his father. Tyrone wrote to his father about his ambition. His father's letter in response was included in Frederick Lawrence Giles' book, Tyrone Power, The Last Hollywood Icon. His father offered his assistance in a remarkable letter of encouragement and guidance. Following his graduation, Tyrone did live with his father. To reacquaint themselves, they went to Canada, where they spent 6 weeks hiking and fishing. At the same time, father was mentoring the son. From Canada, they went to Chicago, where Power Sr. played Shylock in The Merchant of Venice. An offer for a movie role took the Powers to Hollywood. The movie wrapped just before Christmas 1931. On the evening of December 23rd, 1931, Tyrone went to his father's room to see if he was ready to leave for dinner with friends. Power Sr. complained he didn't feel well, and moments later he died of a massive heart attack in his son's arms. Tyrone remained in Hollywood and made the rounds looking for work. In March 1932, he got 2 days of work as a cadet in Tom Brown of Culver. When that didn't lead to more film work, he went to Chicago, where he had contacts and hoped to get work with a repertory company. He didn't. What he got was a job on radio, a job reading the comics. Another young reader on the program was Don Amici. To supplement his radio earnings, Tyrone took a job at the Chicago World's Fair, pushing people in rolling wicker chairs. Tyrone heard from a friend in Hollywood that a review starring Eve Arden was being put together. Tyrone hustled to Hollywood and got the role of a straight man in one of the sketches. At last, he was working on stage and with a speaking part. When the show ended, Tyrone found work as a stage manager and played small parts in local theater. He worked as a chauffeur, and then he got another bit part, again as a cadet, in a Dick Powell and Ruby Keeler movie. For the summer of 1934, Tyrone returned to the World's Fair and found work in an exhibit on Hollywood filmmaking. Don Amici had also returned to work at the fair and was Tyrone's work companion at the filmmaking exhibit. When the fair closed, Tyrone found work with a stock company on the recommendation of one of his father's leading ladies. This led to work as a stage manager and acting roles. Within a short time, he had a small part in the cast of Romeo and Juliet, which featured a well-known actress of the time, Katharine Cornell. The cast also included Orson Welles. In a couple of minutes, you'll hear Tyrone comment about his part in this play. While the show was in Hollywood, Tyrone was offered a 7-year contract by Universal Studios. Studios loved these contracts. They got fresh talent on the cheap and tied them up for years. It was quite profitable for the studio when the actor proved to be what they hoped. Katharine Cornell and her husband advised Tyrone that he needed more time and experience, and on their advice, Tyrone declined the Universal offer. The producers of Romeo and Juliet brought Ralph Richardson from London for the show, which ran successfully for a year in New York. Of course, you'll recall that this is the same Ralph Richardson who was later knighted and with Sir John Gielgud portrayed Holmes and Watson on Old Time Radio. Tyrone's next play was St. Joan. When the show toured in Los Angeles, Tyrone was approached by an attorney with a contract for 20th Century Fox. This time, Cornell and her husband thought he was ready and gave their blessing. After a few walk-on roles in minor films, Tyrone's breakthrough to stardom was in the film Lloyds of London in 1936. Don Amici was a Zanuck favorite and had all but been cast for the lead in the film when Tyrone was given a screen test. The test was made at the request of director Henry King. Tyrone received the part, and Chicago friend Amici was out. The film was a major success. Loretta Young had been cast in the female lead of Lloyds of London. She withdrew from the picture when Amici didn't get the part. With Tyrone's success in Lloyds, however, Young went to Zanuck, and Young and Tyrone quickly made 3 films. It didn't take long before Young and Tyrone were seen together by gossip columnists. This led to Young taking the columnist to task. She said, "A woman may go with whomever she pleases in any other town than Hollywood. If an actress is seen dining with a man, it means she's romantically interested in him. If she is seen twice, she is engaged to him. If 3 times, she's probably secretly married. If she goes places with a boyfriend a few times and stops, the gossips say they've had a spat. And if a few weeks elapse before she is seen with him again, the rumor manufacturers blandly announce that the two have quarreled and are now reconciled." Any romance between Tyrone and Young evaporated when Tyrone was seen around town with Sonja Henie. Henie was a 3-time Olympic figure skater from Norway and had been contracted to make 2 films with Tyrone. Nothing became of the Henie relationship because Tyrone moved on to a relationship with Janet Gaynor. In 1937, Tyrone and Amici were cast as brothers in the film In Old Chicago. The female lead was Alice Faye, who we all know from her radio work on the Fitch Bandwagon and the Phil Harris Alice Faye Show. The trio enjoyed working together so much that before In Old Chicago was even finished, they agreed to do Alexander's Ragtime Band. Tyrone's next film was Suez. During the filming of Suez, Tyrone had his first date with his future wife, Suzanne Charpentier, known as Annabella. Annabella was a French actress who had been brought to Hollywood under contract with 20th Century Fox. So what was their first date? Tyrone took her to a radio studio to watch him on the broadcast of the Theater Guild of the Air. Unfortunately, couldn't find a copy of that broadcast. Radio was becoming a showcase for Hollywood actors. Tyrone appeared on Hollywood Hotel in 1936 and the Royal Gelatin Hour in early 1937. Realizing radio was another way to use the talent he had under contract, Fox studio head Darryl Zanuck created radio's Hollywood Playhouse. Specifically, it was to be a vehicle for Tyrone. It premiered on October 3rd, 1937, with Zanuck introducing Tyrone. Again, no audio available. Tyrone stayed with the show for a year. It would be a while before Tyrone and Annabella would be able to marry. First, she had to go to France to obtain a divorce from her husband, actor Jean Murat. Darryl Zanuck tried to cool the couple's ardor. First, he tried to send Annabella to England to make movies, and she refused. Then he sent Tyrone to Missouri to make Jesse James. During the filming of Jesse James, Annabella went to Paris to get her divorce, and Tyrone fathered a child with an Ozarks mountain girl. The child was placed for adoption by his mother, and Tyrone was never able to trace the child. Zanuck wasn't the only one who wanted to end the Tyrone-Annabella relationship. Tyrone's mother felt a marriage to this older woman, she was 9 years older than Tyrone, who was divorced, would end her son's career. If she only knew that Annabella was actually divorced twice. So here's a slide of the wedding party. And here's the second one. It was 2 years and a couple of more films before Tyrone and Annabella were wed in April 1939. The maid of honor was Pat Patterson Boyer, the wife of Charles Boyer. Annabella had co-starred with Boyer in one of her early films in France. The Best Man, his friend from Chicago, and the man he beat out for the part in Lloyd's of London, Don Amici. One of Tyrone's more memorable films was The Mark of Zorro. His co-star was Linda Darnell. Now, Karl Schadow brought to my attention that the film was scheduled to premiere in Tyrone's hometown of Cincinnati. In conjunction with that, a contest was held to find a local girl to play Darnell's role in scenes from the movie with Tyrone on The Kate Smith Show. My thanks to Karl for the photo of the contest winner, Laura Louise Frazier. Unfortunately, again, there's no recording of The Kate Smith Show that I could find. On November 18th, 1940, Tyrone and Annabella appeared on the Lux Radio Theater in The Rage of Manhattan. Great.
Lux presents Hollywood. Lux Radio Theater brings you Tyrone Power and Annabella in The Rage of Manhattan. Ladies and gentlemen, your producer, Mr. Cecil B. DeMille. Greetings from Hollywood, ladies and gentlemen. To the American theater, in every generation, a benign fortune gives at least one Tyrone Power. That's practically an established tradition, established by a century of the theater and 3 Tyrone Powers. I saw the second Tyrone Power many times, on the stage and screen both. In fact, Mrs. DeMille and I were in the same stock company with him in Denver 35 years ago. But the first Tyrone Power was playing in New York a little more than 100 years ago. Perhaps I'd better reassure you that I did not see him. Tonight, Tyrone Power III stars for the first time in the Lux Radio Theater. The play is The Rage of Manhattan, and that title refers to our co-star of the evening, the lovely and charming Annabella, who has captured the screen audiences of 2 continents. In The Rage of Manhattan, she plays one of those very dangerous characters, a young lady in search of a husband. The young lady happens to be stranded in a strange country, but that's no handicap at all because she also happens to be beautiful. But there's a young man who's determined that she will not find a husband. And, of course, that's Tyrone Power, who comes to us this week from 20th Century Fox, where everybody is very happy over his recent hit in the swashbuckling Mark of Zorro. It's a joy to present 2 stars like Tyrone Power and Annabella in our play tonight.
Okay, well, I didn't put any of the 2 of them speaking because now we're going to go to Tyrone and Annabella appearing in 7th Heaven on the Gulf Screen Guild Theater. The film had originally featured Jimmy Stewart and Simone Simone. It's the story of a sewer worker who rescues a girl from a beating by another woman, the girl's sister. So here are Annabella and Tyrone Power.
Well, here we are. This is my garret. Well, how do you like it?
It's lovely.
Only 1 room, of course, but look at the view from my window.
We're almost as high as the stars.
Well, when you work in the sewers all day, you want to be close to the stars at night. This is my back door.
The window?
Uh-huh. You see this plank? That takes me over to the next roof when I want to visit my friends. Come on, I'll show you.
Oh, no, please.
Now, look, if you're going to stay here, you'll have to stop being afraid.
I'll try.
Good. Here, take my hand.
Oh, that cat.
That's only Grisette. Are you frightened of everything? Well, never mind. What do you think of my place?
I think it's very much like heaven.
Huh? Look here now. You're not taking this seriously, are you? You know, I only brought you here because I had to.
Oh, yes, of course.
You're not going to take advantage of me?
Oh, no, I won't do that.
Well, just so we understand each other. You'll find the bed quite comfortable.
But what about you?
I'll walk out my back door, cross my flank, and beg a bed from my friends. See you in the morning.
Oh, be careful.
Good night.
Good night.
Well, Tyrone Power suffered from the same character flaws as his father. He was unfaithful to his marriage vows. Tyrone had flings with some of Hollywood's biggest names: Betty Grable, Gene Tierney, Frances Farmer. The one that surprised me the most, I guess, was Tyrone's lengthy affair with Judy Garland. When Garland became pregnant, Tyrone asked Annabella for a divorce so he could marry Garland. When she refused, Garland got an abortion and Tyrone returned to Annabella. It became clear to many that the involvement of the United States in the war in Europe was inevitable. Tyrone appeared on the Treasury Hour, a pre-World War II program to raise money for defense. Here's a piece of the program from July 30, 1941.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to hear the United States Treasury Hour, Millions 40 Cents. The network time for this hour has been paid by Texas Company to our government as a Texaco contribution to national defense.
Millions for defense.
The United States Treasury presents an hour of entertainment starring Don Amici, Jack Benny, Claudette Colbert, Betty Davis, Jane Froman, Mary Livingston, Tyrone Power as Master of Ceremonies, Barry Wood, Ray Bloch's choir and Al Goodman's orchestra.
Millions for defense, millions for defense, arms for freedom, right. Any bonds, any bonds, any bonds, any bonds today.
Any bonds today. Bonds of freedom, that's what I'm selling. Any bonds today. Scrape up the most you can. Here comes the freedom man, asking you to buy a share of freedom today. Any stamps today. We'll be blessed if we all invest in the USA. Here comes the freedom man. Can't make tomorrow's plan, not unless you buy a share of freedom today.
Well, I played that music for a couple of reasons. One, that's Don Amici singing, and you know, I have a place in my heart for Don Amici after last year's presentations, but also too because Irving Berlin wrote that particular piece for the show. And now here's here's Tyrone Power speaking with the MC, and this is where he'll talk a little bit about the play that he was in with Catherine Cornell.
This is war.
Wrong one. All right.
Bonds, Barry Wood. Right now, it's my pleasure to introduce our master of ceremonies for the evening. Here he is, the favorite of millions, looking handsomer than he even does in Technicolor, Tyrone Power.
Thank you very much. And, Barry, lay off that handsome stuff. You know Boris Karloff yourself.
Well, in this company, I am. Say, by the way, Tyrone, how's it they let your magnificent fizz out of Hollywood? I thought you were working in a picture about the RAF.
Oh, we just finished yanking the RAF, Barry. I've come east just long enough to see the shows and to do Liliom with Annabella at a summer theater.
The summer theater? Say, I didn't know you were one for the legitimate stage.
Why, and my father and his father, Barry. I played here in New York in 1936 with Catherine Cornell in Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, sure, Romeo and Juliet. I saw that show. What did you play, Romeo?
No, I played Benvolio.
Benvolio. Oh, sure, Benvolio. I remember you very well, of course.
Yeah, you should live so long.
Well, it was a long time ago.
Oh, no hard feelings, Barry. It was a pretty small part, but I was mighty glad to get it. When the theater's in your blood, the important thing is to act, not to be a star.
Well, you're one actor who's managed to do both, Tyrone.
I've been lucky, Barry. But there are a lot of stars on our show tonight, and I'm taking up more than my share of the microphone. Let's get on with our program.
Okay, that's a swell idea.
Well, once the United States was involved in World War II, Tyrone appeared on This Is War, a series designed to explain to the American people what the war was about. This program is from March 7th of 1942.
This is war. The four major networks unite to present the fourth in their series for Wartime America. Tonight, Your Army, written by Stephen Vincent Benet. Tyrone Power is our principal voice.
Sure. We know. We know this is the Army. Our Army. A people's army. Raised and equipped and run by a free people. Made up of Bill Jones and Benny Cohen and Stan Wachinski. Bert Anderson and Charlie Pappas. The kid who dropped out of college when he heard about Pearl Harbor, and the blonde kid who used to pop sodas at the combination drugstore last year. That's our Army. And we know that. But how much do we know? What's an army about? What's it for, a free people's army? Let's go back just a minute and see. Go back to the roots of the nation.
Article 2. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Okay, so he was involved in various programs promoting the defense of the United States. Another of Tyrone's best-known films was Blood and Sand. Now, here are Tyrone and Annabella in the Hollywood premiere radio production of Blood and Sand. In this scene, Tyrone, as Juan Gallardo, has returned to his hometown, believing he has finally been viewed as a great matador.
Oh, Juan,
Carmencita,
you're here. You've come back at last. Oh, Juan.
didn't I tell you I would? Didn't I promise? And you promised something too.
To wait for you. I remember.
All the way on the train from Madrid, I kept thinking and worrying. Perhaps she's tired waiting.
Oh, no.
Perhaps she's gone away.
Oh, no, no.
Perhaps she's even forgotten me.
Oh, you couldn't possibly think that.
I even thought... Do you know the very first thing I asked my mother when I got home? Pedro Espinosa's little girl, I said, with the skinny legs and the funny face. Has she by any chance been married yet? Oh, I can't get over it. I never dreamed you'd grow up to be so very nice to look at.
Did you think of me often?
Every day of my life.
Then why did you never write to me?
Right? Well, maybe it's silly, but I didn't want to write until I could sign my first letter to you, Juan Gallardo, Matador de Toros.
Oh, then you are not the great matador yet.
No, but I've done pretty well. Not bad at all. Guess what I cleared this season? Over 4,000 pesetas.
4,000?
And that's nothing to what I'll make later when I've been recognized. Not that I've been entirely overlooked now, mind you. Not at all. Let's take a look at that. My first press notice. And by Kuro, mind you.
Kuro?
The greatest critic of them all. Pretty nice, don't you think?
Juan, have you read this?
Of course.
And you like it?
Well, I think it's wonderful. And by Kuro. Read it.
I have read it.
No, read it aloud.
Juan, I know why you never wrote to me. It's because you haven't learned to write or read. Is that it?
Read what it says.
What for? I just...
Read it.
Well, of course, it's not complimentary, and he does go on, as you can see in the picture, to become the matador that he wanted to be. Now, Tyrone and Barbara Stanwyck appeared on the Lux Radio Theater in a presentation of This Above All. In the post-performance interview, Cecil B. DeMille made the following announcement.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I must tell you that this is the last time we'll be able to have Tyrone Power in the Lux Radio Theater for months, or perhaps years to come. He's made a contract with Uncle Sam, and within the next few weeks, he'll report to the United States Marine Corps as Private Tyrone Power.
Good luck from every one of us, Ty.
Thank you, Barbara. I hope to be back here in the Lux Radio Theater when it's over, CB. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
And Tyrone did enlist in the Marines. And Darryl Zanuck was furious at losing his money-making machine. Tyrone had been a pilot for several years. And by the way, don't go back and change any of your answers on the quiz. Tyrone had spent so much time in training that he was sure Zanuck had arranged to hold him back. Finally, he was transferred to a transport squadron in the Pacific Front, where he flew numerous missions, sometimes dangerous missions. He also had to deal with a bout of dengue fever, which caused him to lose weight. While Tyrone was overseas, Annabella performed on Broadway in the hit stage play Jakubowski and the Colonel, a comedy. The play dealt with the efforts of upper-class French trying to escape France before the arrival of the Nazis. When Paris was liberated, Annabella was let out of her contract and went to Europe in search of her family. While on her search, Annabella toured with the USO. Annabella was there to meet Tyrone on his return from the service on November 21st of 1945. They went on vacation to Canada, but they had both changed and they were unable to rekindle the relationship they once enjoyed. They separated, but remained close friends until his death. He filmed the Somerset Maugham novel, The Razor's Edge, and Annabella went back to the stage. While making the film, he met an up-and-coming actress, Lana Turner. Turner was ambitious. Turner drank and did drugs. Turner was so possessive of Tyrone that he begged Annabella not to divorce him. Tyrone's next film was Nightmare Alley. It was a role that Tyrone wanted badly. It was a film Zanuck wanted Tyrone to have nothing to do with, but ultimately Zanuck relented. Tyrone's character was a complete 180 from his other roles. He played a con man in a sleazy carnival. He helps to kill the fortune teller's husband, works with the fortune teller to learn how they did their act, then takes off with another woman from the carnival to perform the fortune telling act for another carnival. To say that things went downhill is an understatement. At the end of the film, Tyrone returns to the first carnival and is so desperate he takes a sideshow job, biting the heads off of live chickens. Tyrone received good critical reviews, but Zanuck pulled the film from theaters as quickly as he was contractually able. While still living with Lana Turner, Tyrone received a phone call from Linda Christian. He had met Christian in Acapulco. Tyrone meets with Christian and within a few days is in love with her, leaving a pregnant Lana Turner. Turner has an abortion. After a 16-month friendship, Tyrone and Linda are married. Their daughter, Romina, was born in 1951. Tyrone wanted time away from Hollywood and performed in New York in the play John Brown's Body. His co-star was Charles Lawton. Following the play, he made the film King of the Khyber Rifles. The play and distance put a strain on their marriage. During that time, Christian was named as the correspondent in the divorce of actor Edmond Perdome. Tyrone asked Christian for a divorce, but they reconciled briefly. The next time he asked Linda for a divorce, she told him she was pregnant. Their daughter Taryn was born in 1953. Tyrone then made several movies in succession. The Black Rose, Rawhide with Susan Hayward, I'll Never Forget You with Ann Blythe, The Mississippi Gambler with Piper Laurie. Now, The Mississippi Gambler was performed on the Lux Radio Theater. Linda Christian assumed the Piper Laurie role. So here are Tyrone and Linda Christian in Mississippi Gambler.
Duro. Miss Duro,
Well, what is it? What do you want?
I believe your brother made a mistake last night. This necklace, this is yours, isn't it?
Yes?
I wanted to return it to you.
How do you mean, a mistake?
Well, I won from him at cards. He'd been drinking a bit, or I don't think he'd have chosen this.
My brother doesn't take my property without my permission.
Oh, I'm sure of that. It's very beautiful. You must value it highly.
I've just one thing to say to you. I don't speak to strangers, nor do I accept charity from gamblers. Good afternoon.
In 1952, Tyrone Power made a substantial contribution to old-time radio with the program series Freedom USA. The program was a Ziv syndication, and anyone familiar with I Was a Communist for the FBI will note similarities of the music and style of Freedom USA with I Was a Communist for the FBI, which was also a Ziv syndication.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to hear the story of a United States Senator. You are going behind the scenes of political Washington, into the Senate chambers, the cloakrooms, the private offices, the meetings, secret and public. The locale, the background, are factual. Only the names and the stories are fictional. This is Freedom USA. Starring Tyrone Power as a Senator of the United States, and featuring the voice of America's distinguished news commentator and Washington authority, Edwin C. Hill. Freedom USA, the story of your government today. In a moment, listen to Tyrone Power as Senator Dean Edwards in Freedom, USA. Now, we present Freedom, USA, starring Tyrone Power as Senator Dean Edwards and featuring the voice of Edwin C. Hill.
This is Edwin C. Hill, ladies and gentlemen. Chess may be the royal game, but there's nothing in our democratic statutes that prevents chess as a serious political pursuit. In fact, the world is a chessboard, and unless we learn to play the game of strategy keenly, we may lose out, perhaps fatally. And the chess game that Dean Edwards, youngest man in the Senate, is about to be involved with starts with an unbelievable stack of mail on his secretary's desk.
Good morning, Ginger.
Good morning, Senator, and I resign.
What? Where did all this mail come from?
Slight avalanche. I quit.
What's it all about?
Well, here, read a cross-section.
Huh.
Your devoted constituents.
Dear Senator Edwards, this is to tell you all of us lumberjacks are dead against turning Timber Lake Forest into some fool national park. Your bill will keep us from paying our bills, so lay off, Senator. A lumberjack.
Here's another example. We swing a lot of axes, and we can swing the next election, Senator. We're against your bill for turning our lumber camps down here into a picnic ground. Signed, a rigger.
Those boys sound mad.
Look, Chief, I can't begin to answer all this mail.
How about answering the telephone, then?
Oh. Good morning, Senator Edwards' office. Do you know a man named Paul Bunyan?
Paul Bunyan. Paul Bunyan. Oh, that's the legendary hero of American lumberjacks. It's some gag.
Wait a minute. Now he says he's somebody named Dave Deeping. Accompaniment of hearty, genial laughter.
No, I'll talk to him.
Here he is, Mr. Deeping.
Good morning, Mr. Deeping.
Well, good morning to you, Senator. Nice to talk to you.
It's nice to talk to you, sir, although we've never met.
Well, I was thinking of correcting that, Senator, since that's what I flew up here particularly to do.
I assume it's about the Timber Lake Forest matter.
You assume absolutely correct, Senator. And you've just won a good dinner with me tonight.
Well, I don't think I can make it tonight.
Tonight is the only time I can make it, Senator.
Well, let me think.
Now, my wife's in town with me to see her dad, Senator Giles Chapman.
Chapman?
But she'd like to have dinner with a young senator, not in the family.
Senator Chapman, your father-in-law?
Why, yes.
That's very interesting.
Now, what about dinner with two of your loyal constituents, Senator?
Well, 7 o'clock, all right with you and Mrs. Deeping?
Fine. Check with you later on the place when I've checked with Rita.
Good.
Thank you, Senator. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Mr. Deeping.
And here's how the show wrapped.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tyrone Power. I like America. I like it because here we try to make allowances for human frailty. In America, for example, a man is innocent until proven guilty. Not for long do we allow hysteria or prejudice or error to convict a man before the fact. A nation that takes the human equation into account is a nation of understanding and tolerance and mercy, privileged and under the obligation to stand as an example and a guidepost in a disordered world. America, to me, is such a nation. I like America.
So that was Freedom USA. Now, Tyrone Power made one appearance on Suspense. On March 22nd of 1954, he appeared in The Guilty Always Run. The play was written by the outstanding writing team of Morton Fine and David Friedkin. Elliott Lewis was the producer. You may be familiar with Friedkin and Fine as writers for Broadway Is My Beat and Crime Classics. Now, in this clip from the show, the police wanted to talk to Tyrone's character about the death of a woman. He was the last person with whom she was seen. His friend has picked him up, and I think you'll recognize the voice of his friend.
How you feeling, kid? Scared, Lou. Yeah, I'll bet. How did I get into this, Lou?
What happened? Why am I running away?
Jeff, let's not...
Let's not what?
Let's not kid.
Huh?
Because I'm in this too. That alibi I gave you.
What do you mean, let's not kid, Lou?
The way you pounced on the alibi, paying blackmail. Is that any way for an innocent...
You're saying what, Lou?
Come on, Jeff.
You really think I killed her, don't you?
Listen, Jeff, Janie and I were talking.
Janie thinks I killed her.
Yeah. Yeah, she does, Jeff. You ask and I told you.
Okay. Okay. What are we stopping for?
This is where you're getting out.
What are you talking about? Hey, what is this?
Open the door, Marlowe. That's the boy. Now come on out. That's it. You can slide out too, Mr. Foster.
Sure. Sure.
Lou.
That's right. I told Mr. Anders I'd bring you here, kid.
Look, I didn't kill her. I did a lot of things wrong, but I didn't...
Just don't whimper, Jeff, huh? The old nerve, kid. Like sliding in on a big one. Like the thrill things, kid, huh? Like you and Karen.
It wasn't like that.
How was it, kid, huh? What was the formula? Flex the muscle and be polite? Brown eyes looking up at you and here, take my coat, you must be cold, and let's have a beer and back to the beach.
Ooh.
Back to the beach, and after all of it, she was only kidding all the time? What did you strangle her for?
The coat, Lou. How did you know about it?
What?
The coat. My coat I put on her.
Sure, the one she was drowned in.
There was no coat.
I went back there after she'd been murdered, took the coat from her and burned it. The same crazy reason I did everything wrong. How'd you know about the coat, Lou?
Now, look.
Nobody knew about that coat but me. And whoever killed her.
Then why did you come running to me for an alibi?
I didn't, Lou. You suggested I ought to have one. You would be my alibi. That way you'd have one, too.
What about it, Foster?
What can he say? Those phone calls. Call and hang up till Janie got on the line. Then let Janie listen to her in pain and calling out my name. Start suspicion right at home base. You really built it, didn't you?
We better go.
Hey, don't do that, Foster! Stop! Hey! Hey, don't!
Lou didn't die. He'll stand trial. Summer's fading and vacation's long over. But sometimes on weekends, Janie drives me out to Point Dume. And we sit there. And we watch the sunset ride in on the long, slow curve of surf. And we don't talk.
Tyrone agreed to work with famed director John Ford on The Long Gray Line. The movie was filmed at West Point. And while he was there, at the opening night reception, he met a Mary Robley, a junior editor with Vogue. They were together for a year and a half until she turned down his proposal of marriage. In the fall of 1954, Tyrone was offered the opportunity to play opposite Katharine Cornell in the play The Dark is Light Enough. At the time, Cornell was the first lady of the stage. You may recall she was the one who told Tyrone to reject the first movie contract he was offered, but to accept the second. She was also in the play Romeo and Juliet, where he had played the part of Benvolio. Tyrone's understudy in the play was Christopher Plummer. Tyrone received a good review from New York Times critic. During a Christmas party in 1955, Tyrone met Ava Gabor and had a brief affair with her. Tyrone followed that by journeying to London in January of '56 to appear in a successful run of George Bernard Shaw's play, The Devil's Disciple. When back in Hollywood, and filming the successful The Eddie Duchin story. In August 1956, Linda Christian filed for a divorce. In 1957, while filming 7 Waves Away, Tyrone had his next love affair, this one with his co-star, Mai Zetterling. Tyrone's next to last film was in 1957, Ernest Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises, which he co-starred with Ava Gardner. Tyrone's final film was Witness for the Prosecution, in which he co-starred with his friend Charles Lawton. You may recall he and Lawton starred in the stage play John Brown's Body a few years earlier. Tyrone was doing another stage play, Back to Methuselah, when he met Deborah Ann Minardos. Deborah was a friend of Linda Christian's brother-in-law. He invited Tyrone, Tyrone's ex Linda, and Minardos to lunch. Minardos had recently left Elvis Presley, who wasn't interested in marrying Minardos. Well, Tyrone was, and they were married in May 1958. By June, she was pregnant with the son Tyrone Powers always wanted. The next film that Tyrone was scheduled to make was called Solomon and Sheba, and it was to be filmed in Spain. And this is a picture of Tyrone and Minardos on the set of Solomon and Sheba. Now, this photo was taken on November 15, 1958, and shows George Sanders and Tyrone Power having just finished a sword fight. And in the scene, after the scene, Power collapsed and at age 44 was dead of a heart attack before reaching a hospital. On January 22nd, 1959, 2 months after his death, the son Tyrone always wanted, Tyrone Power IV, was born. As an actor, Tyrone Power was always the essence of a professional. I found nothing to indicate that he was anything but prepared each day to do his job, whether acting on stage or in a film. In the span of about 20 years, with time out for military service, he made almost 50 movies and performed in several successful stage plays. As a man, he lived a life that gave the gossip columnists of his day much to write about. I guess just a couple of footnotes. Tyrone's younger daughter, Taryn, made a few movies, mostly in Spain. She died of leukemia at age 66. Her sister, Romina, has lived in Italy, where she and her husband were a pop singing duo with 22 albums and more than 150 million in record sales to their credit. Tyrone IV is 65 years old and has had parts in 23 films through 2019. He's never had a major role. His only major film was Cocoon, which starred his father's friend, Don Amici. He has a son, Tyrone K. Power, who is said to be pursuing an acting career. So that's Tyrone Power. Now I'll pop up my camera and I'm back on if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Frank. That was really wonderful and showed many aspects of Tyrone Power I certainly wasn't aware of. So it's very informative and helpful. Does
Frank?
anyone have any questions for Frank? John Abbott?
Yeah, Frank, this afternoon I was doing some research setting up a new computer. Not that I don't have enough to play with. And I was going through an old presentation I did with an actor I'm relatively familiar with. And he and Tyrone Power had a lot in common because Bob Bailey also worked at the World's Fair in Chicago. And it was Tyrone Power who suggested to Bob that he go to Hollywood and have a screen test.
Oh, that's interesting. Good to know. Thank you, John. I didn't come across that in my research.
Well, you had to look under the right rock, you know.
Richard, did you have a question?
Well, a couple of things. I wanted to ask if the voice we were supposed to know was the guy who played Gunsmoke. It sounded familiar.
That's exactly right, Richard. That was William Conrad, who played the part of Tyrone's so-called friend, who actually committed the murder on that episode. Well done, Richard.
The other thing that was really interesting to me was the fact that Zanuck quickly drew Nightmare Alley as soon as he could. And one reason that interests me is the Tyrone Power movie that seems to be shown most now. It's a really wonderful acting, perhaps his major acting job as a movie star, because it was a very varied role.
Yeah, it was certainly different from anything else he had done, and Zanuck just felt that it would destroy the image that they had been trying to create through all the other films. But yeah, it was critically acclaimed, and it was only Tyrone through his own forcefulness that got him to convince Zanuck to make the film.
Edgar, you have your hand up.
Yes, Frank, thank you for a wonderful presentation, and you've obviously done a great deal of research. What was the most surprising thing you learned through your research about Tyrone Power?
I guess the fact that he had so many romances, Edgar. I mean, it was serial in terms of one after another. And he clearly loved Annabella, but these other, and I will say this, at least the way I read some of it, let's face it, some of these women were chasing him, but he obviously didn't have the strength to say no.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts, curiosities, observations? Anyone?
This is Dennis. I thought in my mind that he had died maybe at age 60 or so, because I can remember my parents talking about him and all. But that's pretty young to be having a heart attack.
Yeah, his dad was 63 when he passed away. But you're right, 44 was young to have a heart attack, but in some of the pictures, I don't know if you can see, he smoked. He obviously drank and lived a pretty decent lifestyle, but
I don't know if I go decent. I'd say pretty much a heavy hardy lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things I read early, before he was married or anything like that, he hung out with Earl Flynn and Amici, and Amici got away from it because Amici was very conservative, but Earl Flynn was apparently even wilder than Tyrone when it came to womanizing.
Well, that's been a wonderful presentation, Frank. Thank you so much. I particularly enjoyed hearing the clips, the audio clips.
Yeah, and I would mention too, of course, he did appear on a number of other programs and did other Lux shows. I also had a clip of Annabella doing that, Jakubowski and the Colonel, but I had to cut some things out, or I'd have been going till 10 o'clock, and nobody wants that.
Sure we do.
Yeah, I mean, we can keep this meeting going till midnight, no problem at all. Well, that may be the basis of another program that you can regale us with.
Yeah, actually, I thought about it after, if I didn't have programs lined up, I probably would have done it as a two-parter like I did with Don Amici. But nobody wants to wait until March to hear the second part.
Well, we might lose the thread under
Yes.
those circumstances.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Frank. That's just delightful.
Thank you,
And I
Frank.
know you worked very hard on all of this to bring it together. So this is just wonderful. Now, for those of you who are bending with curiosity as to the answers to Frank's quiz, I know I changed my answer on one question. And I'm sure many of the rest of us were not above doing that either. Although I suspected that that was the answer when I read the question. It just seemed kind of on the nose for tonight. But anyway, Miss Stevens, are you prepared to let us know how we have done
I
on
am.
this?
I am
Oh.
prepared to be disappointed.
Well, into
prepared.
every life, a little rain must fall.
All right. Looks like about half of us have participated in the online poll, so I'm gonna end that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ending poll. Okay, I'm gonna post it. Can you see it? Great. Okay, great. Now, just because there's a majority on an answer doesn't mean it's right. If all your friends want to go jump off a bridge, are you going to go run with them? The answer is no, Wendy. The answer is no. You don't go run with your friends and jump off the bridge. Okay? The answer is no. We have to have this conversation every time. Now, number 1. Virginia Gregg played many roles on many things, but especially yours truly, Johnny Dollar. But what was the name of the character that she played as Johnny's girlfriend? 8 of you are thinking about Richard Diamond, so A is incorrect. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Go back and listen, because that's Helen Asher. That was like the only one I was like, yes, I know it's not that. Felt really confident, but I don't know, the other ones, who knows? So let's see. We were split between B and C, Betty and Lorelai. Patsy, at least you got a vote. Patsy, pulling for you. But no, it's not D either. So sorry to that one person who gave Patsy threw a vote at her. It was nice of you, but it's wrong. The correct answer is B, Betty Lewis. Betty Lewis was Johnny Dollar's girlfriend. It would have been funny if her name was Betty Sense. Hey, get it?
Sally, we can't see the questions and answers.
You can't see the poll? I got thumbs up that the poll was visible. Okay, well then that sounds like user error. I don't know how to help you.
It was, and then it vanished again.
Okay, well, it is on my screen and it still says stop sharing. So if I stop sharing, it will disappear entirely. And I am not going to do that. So,
and it is visible.
Looks like some of us got it and some of us don't.
Not on mine, but that's okay.
Well, then you're just going to have to listen to my beautiful voice as I describe it for you. I know. Even better. Number 2. Dr. Kildare worked at Blair General Hospital. And where is Blair General Hospital? If you read Radio Recall and do the games in Radio Recall, you may remember that this was actually a question in a jumble. Am I correct, Frank? Tell me I'm not making this up. Thank you very much. From like several issues ago. So if you do your homework, you get the answers in the quiz right. It's amazing how that works. Oh, it's amazing how if you do your homework, you get things right. But we all didn't do our homework because we were spread all over the place. 3 of us each thought it was Los Angeles and Chicago. 5 of us thought it was Boston. 6 of us said New York. The correct answer is, at least the majority, D, New York is the correct answer. Blair General Hospital is in New York City. Number 3. Molly's Uncle Dennis was talked about but never heard from until several of the show's regulars were away and serving in World War II. So who then played Uncle Dennis? Wouldn't it have been funny if it was Dennis Day? But it wasn't. So those 2, I'm sorry, you are incorrect. A is not correct. We had 4 go for Hans Conried. That is also not correct. B is not the correct answer. And then we were split between Ransom Sherman and Parker Fennelly with 5 votes each. The correct answer is C, Ransom Sherman. I wonder how much he was asking for. Thanks, Kelly. I appreciate the giggle. At least somebody gets my jokes. The kids certainly don't. I think I'm crazy. It's fine. Keep them on their toes. And right now that's you. You're my test class. So far my jokes aren't doing great, so I'll keep working on them. Number 4. Gary Cooper will never be remembered for his singing voice. Though I don't know. Frank, it seems like you remembered this, so I don't know. You know, somebody remembered it. Maybe they remembered it for being bad. I don't know. But now we're all going to have to go listen to it. I guarantee it. We're all going to be like, well, I want to hear this terrible rendition so I can riff on it. I know you all are. You're going to YouTube later. So he was famously cajoled to sing a version of Lay That Pistol Down, which also, I have lots of questions about that song. On which radio program? Well, we didn't know. First of all, the voice of Firestone. I would like to know more about that program. I have lots of questions, but it is not that one. So the 3 of you, I'm very sorry. You are incorrect. It is not the voice of Firestone. 5 of us thought it was Jack Benny or Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. Good thoughts. 3 of us went for Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis. I mean, they do all kinds of goofy things. I mean, those movies, first of all. Okay? There was like 87 of them. Literally. But it was not D either, so obviously that one was a throwaway. But the correct answer is B, the Jack Benny Show. Maybe he could secretly sing really well and was just pulling a Jack Benny. No? All right. No, I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Poor Gary Cooper. Number 5. Created 6 years before Sherlock Holmes, this detective also used scientific method in solving crimes when he came to radio in 1943. Which program was this? Boy, we need to study. We were all over the place here again. We had 2 votes for the amazing Mr. Malone, which it was not. Also, don't know what that show is, so probably for the best. 5 votes for the Shadow, but that one was not correct either. 3 votes for Mr. Keen, Tracer of Lost Persons. But the correct answer goes to our very slim majority of 6 for Nick Carter, Master Detective. Nick Carter, Master Detective. Number 6. The plethora of Lancasters. Who knew? Who also knows if these are all real Lancasters? Don't know. Also, maybe some of you pronounce it Lancaster. Well, it's not. So just get that out of your head right now. I don't know. Maybe from wherever you are, it is Lancaster, but it's not. It's Lancaster. So yes, this is number 6. Casey Crime Photographer was sponsored by Anchor Hawking Glass Corporation of which Lancaster? A lot of us, 7 of us went for Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I mean, it's close by. Good thought. It's also a real place. So good thought. Nobody went for Lancaster, South Carolina. Is it real? I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Is it real? It is
Yes.
real. Okay. Well, it does not have anchor hocking glass. So good job that nobody picked that. One person did pick Lancaster, California, but no, sorry, they don't make glass there. The correct answer is B, Lancaster, Ohio, and good job to the majority. 8 of us selected B, Lancaster, Ohio. Number 7. This show. Frank will always find a way to include this program. It's turned into the new BB. I'm not loving it. Marjorie announced her engagement in it. Leroy delivered it. Gildersleeve didn't love it, but he read it anyway. It was Summerfield's newspaper, not Springfield. Isn't that cute? They lived in Summerfield. I actually never pay attention because I don't like this show and I don't listen to it. So, as the first time I realized they lived in Summerfield. So, there, I give it 1 point for being adorable. Everything else is negative points. But what is the newspaper's name? A couple of us, 2 each, thought that it was the Insider and the Inquisitor. 4 went for the Informer. 8 went for the Inquirer. Thinking they're very inquiring minds want to know. In Summerfield, that is incorrect. It is not A. Sorry, majority. You are not correct. It's also not the Insider or the Informer. However, they are very inquisitive in Summerfield, apparently. And the correct answer is C, the Summerfield Inquisitor, which only makes me think of the Spanish Inquisition. The Inquisition, what a show. So, it's C is the correct answer. Wow, tough crowd tonight. Number 8. Nigel Bruce, the favorite Dr. Watson, which is relative, was born in Mexico. This Sherlock Holmes radio actor with whom he teamed on radio was born in Russia. Who is he? Could it be Sir John Good, whose name looks fabulous and I am purposefully mispronouncing because I love it? Please pronounce it properly for me, John William. Go.
Feel good.
So much less exciting.
It is.
But it's not him. So sorry to the 2 of you who selected him. For his fun name, A is incorrect. Oh, you went with the easy Basil Rathbone. You went there. I mean, that was the trying to trick you question. They're always going to give you an answer that tries to trick you, kids. Don't fall for it. B is also incorrect. Basil Rathbone is not the correct answer. I mean, I know, but it's not. The man wasn't born in Russia. So we're left with Tom Conway, who I immediately thought of Tim Conway, but it's not him. Or William Gillette, who makes me think of shaving, but it's not him, so throw him away too. It's not D. The correct answer is, good job to the 5 of you who selected C, Tom Conway, who's not Tim. Number 9. You Bet Your Life was hosted by the one, the only, Groucho. But what was his given name? What? You mean Groucho wasn't written on his birth certificate? Wouldn't it have been hilarious if it was? I kind of wish it was, but nope, it wasn't. And oh, we knew this one. I'm so proud of us. Look at us. One of us selected Arthur, and that's all right. You don't have to raise your hand, but we'll talk after class. Do some remedial Marx Brothers viewing or something as extra homework. But all the rest of us did select the correct answer. B, Julius. Julius is the correct answer. Look,
As a little bit of trivia, Groucho was the only one who actually had a birth certificate. The rest of them, their births were not registered with the city.
Oh, interesting. Were they really there? Dun, dun, dun.
Yes.
Number 10. During World War II, this film star upset his studio bosses when he enlisted in the Marines. Huh! We might have just learned about this, kids. I wanted to stop the video during the presentation and say, hey, this is that point when you take notes, because it's part of the quiz. He was the star of the radio series Freedom USA. Who was he? I mean, good thoughts for those that selected A or D, Jimmy Stewart or Gary Cooper, but you are not correct. I love that nobody picked B. Clark Gable. I was like, forget him. But good, because that also is not correct. I think by now we all know the correct answer is C. Oh, very good, class. And the majority did get Tyrone Power as C, which we just learned. Very nice. Well done. You have lots of homework to do before September. Really, we got to keep our grades up. It's no good to start really, we got to start strong, everybody.
Thank you, Miss Stevens.
I want to point out the humor in the one on Gary Cooper that Frank put in, number 1 being the the voice of Firestone, because that was a show that was only for very trained operatic voices, and it always had to start with the wife of whoever, with a song called "If I Could Tell You," which was demanded an operatic voice and was written by the wife of the host of that show. As much as the singers didn't enjoy singing it, they had to sing it. But it was very difficult, and you could only do that with a trained operatic voice. So that was a very good joke at putting that on the Gary Cooper idea.
Our Frank is subtle, to say the least.
Yeah, if I could just make one point or two. Clark Gable did serve in the Air Force. He enlisted in the Air Force after Carol Lombard passed away in that plane crash. So he did serve as well. And Basil Rathbone, as much as you think he's from Great Britain, he was born in South Africa. So, just a couple of little pieces of information.
Frank, one minor correction.
Yes, sir.
Clark Gable enlisted in the United States Army Air Force. The U.S. Air Force, of which I am a graduate, did not exist until 1940s
or even a little later, I think.
Also, do you know what the significance of Lancaster, California is?
Judy Garland.
Sorry, what did you call it?
Lancaster.
That's where Judy Garland lived.
That's where Bob Bailey died.
Well, you've
everything revolves around Bob Bailey.
Door. You know? Everything's going back to Bob Bailey tonight.
But that's where Judy Garland's
like 2 degrees of Bob Bailey for you. It's like not even
it's half a degree.
Ooh, half a degree.
Ooh, a half a degree. Very good. Any other questions, observations, curiosities? Well, that concludes the public part of our meeting tonight.